Hello everyone, Miles here from the team at Iconic. I'm joined today by Tim Hetland, who is joining us this November at the Product Design Week. You might have already seen a number of other awesome interviews with some of the exciting speakers that we have joining us. But Tim is joining us from the team at Google. But without giving too much more into kind of who you are, Tim, I'm just going to ask you to please share a little bit about who you are, what your current role is within the team at Google, and really what's brought you to the role you're in today. What's that career journey look like for Tim?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Miles. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim. As Miles said, I'm coming to you from Seattle, Washington, so quite a long way away from London, but looking forward to seeing you all in November. I'm a content design manager at Google, and I've been here for about 6 years. And in my role, I lead content design teams that are working on Google Cloud. So primarily teams that are focused on our infrastructure as a service products, and more recently, some of the more horizontal generative AI efforts that we've been focused on over the last 2 years. I came to content design like many content designers, not through typical design school pathways, but I started my career in a doctoral program focused on literature, which is not necessarily product design. But in that program, I was really interested in the effects mobile technology could have on storytelling, and that was kind of my entrance into the world of technology, and then from there, product design. And as I started to kind of get more into the tech industry and thinking about the product experiences, I felt myself naturally drawn to questions of, how do we move people through digital experiences? How do we deliver the right information that those people need in those experiences at the right moment and in the right way so that people can actually understand what they're trying to accomplish? And little did I know that as I was like getting into this field or into tech in product design, what I was really thinking about were questions of information architecture, content strategy, UX writing, and ultimately product design. And so that's, as I started being interested in those, I was gravitated towards those. And as I started to move away from academia and into startups and agencies worlds, that's the kind of jobs that I focused on. So, content strategy roles at agencies, content design roles at startups, and eventually landed here at Google, where I started as an IC focused on just contributing work, and eventually saw some unique challenges in building the team out here and moved into that manager role.
Amazing. I love that journey, and I love the kind of diverse approaches people find themselves in, these kind of, especially the kind of content strategy UX writing world. It seems because those skill sets aren't necessarily inherently design centered to begin with, right? The ability to be communicative and storytell is that starting block.
Exactly. Yeah. When I look back over my career, both in tech and outside of that, there really is a through line. It may not be actual product design, but questions of systems thinking, which I was focused on in academia, thinking about genre development, language, and the effect of developing language to impact people, and how we create and craft stories, to make sense of the world, and then ultimately, how we create information experiences so people can actually understand what they're doing, understand where they're going, etc. So there is a through line there, even though it may be a little bit foggy to see at first.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for sharing your journey to where you are today. And you've already somewhat alluded to kind of what your topic is going to be about. You started as an IC. Now you've worked your way up to a manager. And for those that are listening in and interested in understanding a bit more about it, we're going to now talk a bit about this talk. And what the title is essentially Cultivating a Thriving Content Design Practice. So Tim, tell us a little bit about what that topic means and what's inspired you to choose that topic.
Yeah, I think let me start with what inspired me to choose that topic, because that's going to give the context for the first question. Over the last 10 years of being in this or in various content design and product design roles, I've spoken with hundreds of people that are either thinking about being a UX writer, content designer, or are in that discipline, themselves working. And obviously, as we have those conversations about how do you move, how do you be successful in those roles, craft, questions of craft obviously come up. How do you do the work, etc. But oftentimes, other questions came up, questions around belonging, questions around contributing, growing in a role that is, perhaps more nascent than other UX disciplines, surviving in the role, and nitty-gritty questions about operations, stakeholder management, these kind of things. So when I was thinking about, a talk for November, Product Design Week, it was like, we talk about these things in all these one-on-one meetings all the time with people at Google and outside of Google. And I think that there's a lot of value in thinking, both about the craft and the operations side. So that's kind of the focus of the talk is, how can we focus on impactful work, both impactful work to our users and impactful work to career development? How can we improve, planning and prioritization processes around content design? And how do we make sure that we cultivate a community, of UX where writers and content designers feel valued and feel included in teams? So that's the stuff that we're going to spend a little bit of time in November, chatting about and working through.
Amazing. I was going to ask you to give me a couple of sneak peeks, but I feel like you've already kind of outlined.
I got sneak peeks. I can give one more.
Right, so come on, sneak peek.
Oftentimes this isn't going to be a surprise to people that are actually in content design roles, but for those outside of it, it may be, which is that most of the time, many teams, if they have a content designer, they have one, or they don't have very many, right? And so content designers are often up against it in terms of the work that they have, that the team needs, and how many people are actually available to do the work. So content designers are often asked to host and run office hours type programs where the overflow of needed work can be routed into a kind of office hours situation where they can come and ask questions and hopefully get some answers. The problem with office hours as it pertains to UX writing and content design is that it oftentimes focuses on surface level work, right? We have a string, we need that string, we have a writer, can the writer just make the string better, or can the writer just write the string in the first place? That, though, doesn't necessarily recognize the underlying complexity that content design can contribute to the UX process, focuses maybe on slightly the wrong area. It creates a model amongst the UX team where the content designer is seen as maybe more service oriented. They're just providing a solution at the end of a process instead of one that's more collaborative and partner based. And then ultimately it randomizes the writer who has to now think about not only the core focus projects that they're working on, but all these other projects that people are bringing to office hours. So one of the things that we've explored on my teams here at Google, and that we'll talk about a little bit in November, is how can we maybe reorientate office hour programs to be more impactful to our partners and more sustainable to the writers that are staffing them? And what would that actually look like? And we have a few ground rules that we've tried out at Google, including not giving homework to the writers. So, everything that happens in office hours stays in office hours, so to speak. We've limited the amount of live writing that we provide in office hours, and we focus primarily on reviewing other people's content design, right? And actually saying, okay, what problems are we trying to solve for the user? And is the language that we're presenting in the experience actually getting there? This has been, successful, so to speak, on the teams that we've been here, and has been adopted by other teams at Google. And so we're going to look into that in November and how we might build that out on the teams that you all are on.
Amazing. Thank you for that. That's a great insight. And we've already talked briefly about how these kind of questions come up often internally within these conversations, and obviously we're at the advent of AI and all of these kind of transformative experiences happening in our industry. I'd love to get a sense from you why this topic is important now. Why for the current state of UX and product design?
Yeah. So as I said, UXW or content designers are often by themselves. They often don't have management support that maybe is familiar with the discipline or practice the discipline themselves. And they're overwhelmed by the amount of work that they have to do or the kind of work that they're asked to do. But like you said, this moment of AI and transitions to multimodal user experience design really asks us to have content design at the center of the user experience design process, because content becomes such a pivotal piece, to the user's journey. So we need impactful, growing, strategically minded content designers more than ever. I'm biased, of course, but that's my take. And I think with the advent of generative AI over the past few years, that has become more obvious. And so I think, a talk like this where we can start to look at how to be more principled in our practice, and how do we mature that practice at this moment is really important.
So important, yeah. And to wrap up, we're going to get onto another section where I just want to talk more openly about the future of the industry and give people another opportunity to learn a little bit more about you yourself, right? But before I do, to wrap up about your talk, it's a two-part really. The first is, who is this for? And then the second is, what do you think you'd like for them to leave your talk with? What do you hope for them to be able to apply to their work moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, I think the talk is first and foremost for those practicing UX writing and content design, or those aspiring to practice that, whether that's on a team or you hope to be on a team in the near future. But the second group of people is really people that work with content designers, whether those are other UXers, other UX disciplines like research or interaction design, or other cross-functional partners like product strategy, product management. These these types of folks need to understand how to collaborate and what a good practice looks like. And I think the talk could be good for all types of those types of audiences. What do I hope that people take away from this? I mean, I think that the first thing is that you're not alone in the challenges that you face in your day-to-day life, especially as it pertains to this career. And so just a real feeling of togetherness when we start to voice the concerns and challenges that we face. We see that we're not alone in that, and that can be quite powerful in providing us a roadmap on how to improve our own situation, and hope that actually is possible. I think the second thing that I love when I go to talks is just what are a couple actual practical things that I can take away from here and day one when I return back to my job, put into practice. And so hopefully we'll throw some of those your way as well. And then the last thing is, questions that each person can consider. How this, what things you might need to think about that you haven't been thinking about in your career as a UX writer, that could help you be more impactful, do the work that you want to do, and have more fun doing the job that we think is great.
Amazing. I really love that point about the kind of togetherness. It's something that's come up, especially I think for interviews with UX writers and content strategists, is this sense of togetherness, and I think it's so important. So very excited for you to join us this November, Tim. For anyone listening in, tickets are on sale for UX Writing. You can head over, sign up now, and join us at UX Writing. We have a whole week of content as well, whatever your seniority, whatever your specialism, we're trying to ensure that we're catering and building a week that allows all of us to network and collaborate around this discipline so we can push it forward. So thank you once again for talking about yourself at the high level, your career and your talk. I wanted to ask some questions I've been asking a lot of our speakers this November. First, we've touched on Gen AI a few times, but and that is obviously the big buzzword of 2024. But are there some trends or technologies, Gen AI included, that you think will truly shape the future of this industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gen AI is probably the one that we have to talk about. So from a content design perspective and a writing perspective, the things that I'm interested in thinking about and working with other people to think about is, not only how do we write for these new Gen AI experiences, so the product experiences that will allow people to interact and engage with large language models, which that's a new way for new patterns, new interaction patterns, new information patterns for us to think about. How do we facilitate, that experience? The second thing is, how do we write for large language models? How do we perhaps help to inform the design of those large language models so that the end product is actually more focused on the user? That's a pretty gnarly and challenging space, and can be scary to jump into, but also can be quite powerful because a lot of the input, especially for some non-multimodal models, is like text, right? And the output is often text. And so trying to bring someone in that understands the content design practice can be quite powerful. And then the third is how do we write alongside generative AI, which can obviously produce various things. So those are all challenges I think that we as product designers need to need to obviously be thinking about. But I think there's great opportunity for us to not only think about them and be a part of those conversations, but to lead those conversations, because we really are coming at this, pivotal moment in, the world with a unique perspective, one that is centered on how people engage with digital products and the value that those digital products can provide to their life when they're designed, in really meaningful ways.
Totally. I can't agree more. So I don't think there's anything more that I could add to that. And when we've talked a bit about your journey up to where you are now, coming from IC, coming out of the industry into a contributor role and then into a management role. If you could give some advice looking back to aspiring, UX writers, content strategists, people who are maybe looking at stepping into this field, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, it's advice that I'll give to other people, but it's advice that I probably need to also take, every day myself, which is that oftentimes in product design, we focus on the individual creativity and craft pieces of it, right? This is part of the education that we go through. This is part of the portfolios that we put forth, to get jobs and stuff. We highlight our ability to creatively problem solve and, use the product design craft to make user experiences. But I think the thing I would ask people to remember or to think about is that, in addition to creativity and craft, collaboration is of equal importance in the product design experience, process. And developing those collaboration skills, not only with your cross-functional partners, but with other UX disciplines. So how does interaction designer work with content designer? How does content designer work with UX researcher, et cetera? That is so powerful, and it's so important in terms of actually delivering, robust experiences to our customers and users, ones that take into account all types of different things: visual design, interaction design, the language that we're using, et cetera. So I think craft, creativity, focus on those things as you're learning, but also think about your collaboration skills and what you can do to better facilitate how you collaborate with people and how the teams that you're on collaborate together.
Yes, definitely. And as you've progressed through your career, are there some major influences that have helped guide your trajectory as a UX writer and content strategist?
I mean, I think, for me personally, the inspiration that I often draw on as someone coming from the humanities and a literature background is authors. When my well is running low from a creativity perspective, it's usually because I'm not reading as much as I would like to, so I have to return to that. So for me, authors, especially those of the contemporary ilk, I draw great inspiration from. So people like Thomas Pynchon for his wildness, people like Don DeLillo for his control of prose, and then people like Michael Crichton, who was the author of my childhood, and his ability to tell just incredible stories, I find to be inspirational. And every year I'm reading lots of books, but I'm always reading those three authors at the same time as well, because I just continue to find a lot of inspiration from them and their control of language, their explorations of language, and their sense of aesthetics and how it impacts our experience.
I love that answer. And to evolve that question around your inspirations, because I think I jumped ahead of a question in our plan, right? What do you do outside of the reading side? Anything else that keeps your creative juices flowing and helps you stay inspired?
So I love board game and card games, and I spend a lot of time playing those. But I love also trying to design those games, and so I do usually have one or two projects that I'm working on from a board game design perspective, which allows me to flex a bunch of different creative muscles from the actual writing piece and the strategy piece of what is this game, down to the interaction pieces and the visual design pieces of the actual elements. So it's usually something I'm doing in the background on my spare time to make sure that I'm continuing to be challenged and interested by the design world.
You're going to have to bring one of your games to Product Design Week now. We'll have a big board game session, the break.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Just a couple of last questions then. Are there any kind of and there is a myriad of tools out there, softwares that different companies, designers use. Are there any that are staples that you've found along your career that are your favorites?
Yeah. I mean, I've learned, having been in this career for a while, that the tools come and go. And having been in product design for over a decade, the different tools I've used to design user experiences has shifted every few years. So I try not to get too attached to a specific tool, but I love going back to just a doc of some sort where we can collaborate and throw ideas out and comment. But lately, I think the thing that I've been encouraging my team to use, and the thing that I've loved using, is the FigJam version of Figma, which is the lighter version and allows us to just kind of get in and collaborate and not worry about the way things look like too much and just start throwing ideas. It also has a pretty low level barrier of entry. And so a lot of our partners that maybe don't have a lot of design, let's say they're not very comfortable with Figma proper or other design tools, still can get in there and throw stickies around and draw rectangles and start connecting things with arrows and lines. So I think FigJam is something that I've found a lot of value in over the last year, just because at Google now we're widely distributed as a company, and so needing to collaborate in a whiteboard type environment while we're all in meetings like this or on our computers has been really important. And so that's something that I've been using quite a bit of.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I hope that's helpful for anyone out there thinking about how they can be more collaborative in this increasingly remote world.
Exactly.
My last two questions are just for a bit of fun, Tim. And the first is there, for people who want to break the ice, come up to you at the event and say hi, is there a fun fact people should know about Tim Hetland?
I mean, you can always come up and say hi. I will always say hi back. And that includes on LinkedIn or other social network. Like, I always try to reply back to people that say hi to me. And I always set up or, give people 30 minutes of time so we can actually meet and discuss, whether that's at the conference in November or outside of that. So please feel welcome to do that. But, from a fun fact perspective, there was a time in life when, I wasn't doing product design and I was in graduate school, and to help pay some of the bills, I took a role as an on-air personality for like a sports commentator for play-by-play for rugby games in the US that were being televised on cable networks here. And so I did color commentary and in-studio pieces. And I don't know if those tapes are floating around anywhere. I sure hope not. But that was a fun experience to actually, try to be on TV and not sound like I didn't know what was happening. And that's a nerve-wracking experience for sure.
Are you a rugby fan, Tim? Or
I am. Yeah, I played rugby in high school and college, and as an adult. So there was not a lot of I got the gig probably because there wasn't a lot of people that knew about rugby in the States that could or were willing to be on TV, and I just threw my hand up. So we'll call it a moment of opportunistic timing.
I love that. That's a very cool fact. Obviously, in the UK, we love our rugby, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe you can catch a game when you're over here. My last question then, and this is, you've given us one career trajectory you've taken in life, but if you weren't a UX writer,
Yep.
manager, where do you think you might have ended up career-wise?
Yeah. I mean, I always wanted to be a teacher, and in between sports commentary and product design, I did teach at the university literature classes and film study classes. And so, if I didn't do this, or if I decide at some point not to do this anymore, I think I would try to find my way back to being in the classroom and supporting students instead of supporting other designers.
That bodes well for the talk in November then, because we're aiming for practicality and education. So
exactly. Yeah.
Amazing, Tim. I really sincerely appreciate you taking the time today to join with us, to let people get to know you a little bit better and learn about why they should be coming along and joining us this November to hear from you. Are there any last sort of tips or words that you would want to translate for people for why they might look to attend your talk this November?
I mean, attend my talk, but attend all the talks. And, whenever you go to a conference, it can be overwhelming. There's tons of people, there's lots of information, there's lots of experiences. And so my encouragement to anyone who's going to a conference is just to take it easy, let it all come in. Don't worry about taking notes on every single point that single speaker is providing, because you won't ever catch up. Just be there, be in the moment, and really connect with the people around you, because they're all there for the same reason, which is they care deeply about designing good experiences for our users. And I think that's a great thing to remember and think about and enjoy the time.
Yeah, you said it all. We're going to do everything we can to help people accommodate those sticky interactions when you're at events. But take heed Tim's words. Join us this November. It's going to be an excellent talk and hopefully a wonderful conference all around. Thank you once again, Tim, for joining us. We're very excited to welcome you. And yeah, we'll see you very soon.
Thanks for having me. Everyone, we'll see you in November. Have a good day.